A water buffalo goes through a louvered window. Head, horns, and all four legs get through. Why can't its tail get through? Thus, the strategy for employing the military. Do not approach high mountains. Do not confront those who have hills behind them. Do not pursue feigned retreats. Do not attack animated troops. Do not swallow an army acting as bait. Do not obstruct any army retreating homeward. If you besiege an army, you must leave an outlet. Do not press an exhausted invader. These are the strategies for employing the military. Nope. Look, the raft, an aircraft carrier in the ocean, is a media event, but much in a much more profound, general sense than you can possibly imagine. Oh? It's created by the media in that without the media, people wouldn't know that it was here. Rufus wouldn't come out and glom onto it the way they do. And it sustains the media. It creates a lot of information flow, movies, news reports, you know. So you're creating your own news event to make money off the information flow that it creates, says the journalist, desperately trying to follow. His tone of voice says that this is all a waste of videotape. His weary attitude suggests this is not the first time Rife has flown off on a bizarre tangent. Partially, but that's only a very crude explanation. It really goes a lot deeper than that. You've probably heard the expression that the industry feeds off biomass, like a whale straining krill from the ocean. I've heard that expression, yes. That's my expression. I made it up. An expression that is just like a virus, you know? It's a piece of information, data, that spreads from one person to the next. Well, the function of the raft is to bring more biomass, to renew America. Most countries are static. All they need to do is keep having babies. But America's like this big, old, clanking, smoking machine that just lumbers across the landscape, scooping up and eating everything. Leaves behind it a trail of garbage a mile wide. Always needs more fuel. Ever read the story about the labyrinth and the Minotaur? Sure, that was on Crete, right? The journalist only answers out of sarcasm. He can't believe he's here listening to this. He wants to fly back to LA yesterday. Yeah, every year the Greeks had to pony up a few virgins and send them to Crete as tribute. Then the king put them into the labyrinth, and a minotaur ate them up. I used to read that story when I was a kid and wonder who the hell these guys were on Crete, that everyone else was so scared of them that they would just meekly give up their children to be eaten every year. They must have been some mean sons of bitches. Now, I have a different perspective on it. America must look to those poor little buggers down there about the same as Crete looked to those poor Greek suckers, except that there's no coercion involved. Those people down there give up their children willingly, send them up into the labyrinth by the millions to be eaten up. The industry feeds on them and spits back images, sends out movies and TV programs over my networks, images of wealth and exotic things behind their wildest dreams, back to those people, and it gives them something to dream about, something to aspire to. And that is the function of the raft. It's just a big old krill carrier. Oh, hello there. I didn't see you guys come in. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. I was just reading you a little bit of Essential Zen, a little koan there about how he can't seem to get his tail through the window. Maybe it reminds you of a certain exchange that's in trouble. The Art of War, how to deploy your military. Maybe another exchange that's in trouble, and a little bit of Snowcraft crash about the raft and the interesting aircraft carrier that this billionaire genius in Snowcraft was building. But let's get right to it. Let's move on to Bitcoin Talk Show. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share so that more people will find the show and more people will join us in the chat and later join us for the call-in section. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, 2019. My name is Thomas Hunt, and here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is up 2% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 5,906. a high of 5,926 and a low of 5,749. That's $1 for 16,930 Satoshis, once again approaching the 15,000 Satoshi barrier. Our top story today, Binance security breach update. Binance was hacked for 7,000 Bitcoin, a reported 2% of their Bitcoin holdings. Deposits and withdrawals are frozen, and CZ promises to cover all losses from their fund. Trading remains enabled, but deposits and withdrawals are frozen for 2 weeks while they check their systems. So this was only the beginning of the story. Obviously, 7,000 Bitcoin, that's $41 million. Naturally, this would usually cause a crash in the market. Everyone would freak out. Bitcoin's so easy to hack. It's so easy to take it all. But this story went in a slightly different direction because of the way that Binance chose to react to the hack. Crypto exchange Binance Crypto exchange Binance founder and CEO CZ Binance said in an AMA that the team is deciding on whether it will do a rollback on the Bitcoin network following the $40 million hack on the exchange Wednesday. Now, part of this is good on CZ. He had a previously scheduled AMA and he kept his appointment. Good on you, CZ. That's good to keep appointments. It's good to show up where you say you'll show up. However, this leads to him making probably an off comment here. Maybe we could roll back the chain. The guy's probably in shock. His company has just lost $40 million. Quite a lot is happening to old CZ here. And he's got to decide what to do with it. And instead, he decided to try to roll back the Bitcoin chain. As he says here, they gave it up very quickly, probably because of the mountain of criticism that came down on them. As he says here, after speaking with various parties, including blah, 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 and others, we decided not to pursue the reorg approach. They say revenge by hackers moving the fees to miners. They would damage the credibility of Bitcoin, all these different things. It's great that they're having this whole rationalization now. But the problem is they told everyone that it was a possibility that they could roll back the chain, and it never was. As he says here, Whale Panda woke up this morning with the desire to reorg Bitcoin, but then he decided not to. And roll back your mother if you want rollback. That was pretty funny. We had a poll. Should we roll back Bitcoin? 100% of the people answered no. No one wants to roll back Bitcoin. As he says here, it wasn't even a rollback. It would be a transaction that would keep all other transactions and just distribute the hacker coins to miners, about 300 Bitcoin a block production. It's not a rollback, nor is it reverting the funds to Binance. Well, why are you doing it then? Just to deny the hacker? The hacker was better than you. The hacker took your money. If you take the money back, that doesn't make the hacker not better than you. You're just changing the rules afterwards. As he said, it's to put this to bed, it's not possible. Bitcoin ledger is the most immutable ledger on the planet. Done. But the problem is, why didn't he know that yesterday? Why was this crypto CEO so uninformed about Bitcoin that he thought he could just roll it back because they had a whoopsie on their exchange? Was he born yesterday? Well, I guess if it's his first day, then it's fine. So there you go. A very strange story about CZ and Binance. Hopefully, we'll talk about it more when we do the call-in section. I'm just going to go through a little bit more of the news right now. From Kyle Torpy, OneCoin user who lost $130,000 in the scam is starting a class action lawsuits. Prosecutors say OneCoin generated $3.8 billion in revenue with their scheme. So just another reminder to show you guys from us on the inside here in crypto space or crypto Twitter or whatever we're in, it always seemed like nonsense, OneCoin. We always never wanted to buy any of that. We were never interested in it. I did watch that great Krista Rose, Bitcoin Uncensored. They went inside one of these OneCoin meetings and they filmed them. And they had professional multi-level marketers selling these people on OneCoin. One guy even said, I know it in my knower. I know it in my knower that OneCoin is going up. It'll double by November. I know it in my knower. But remember, from the outside, these things to us that look like jokes, to normal people, look like investments. So all these people invested their actual real money into OneCoin and they lost it all. So I hope they do well in the lawsuit. They still haven't captured Dr. Ruja. She's still out there. They caught her husband, I believe, or her compatriot, her alleged conspirator. But Dr. Ruja is still out there. So if you see her, let somebody know. Happy birthday to Mr. Beast. He's a great YouTube channel. He does kind of challenges and gets a lot of views, gives away a lot of money. Right here, he showed that if you're a good guy and everyone likes you, or just because they want $10,000, 970,000 people will retweet you for a mere $10,000. I wonder if he could have gotten the million retweets if he had upped it to 100 grand. I'll bet he could have. And check out our donation drive for the Mad Bitcoin Tour of Germany, where I will record more free interviews for the World Crypto Network. So if you'd like to support our ability to go to Germany and record free interviews, go ahead and pause the video now. You can donate to the QR code on your screen. Special thanks to our latest donor, 614,002 Satoshis. We've also got a donor of 264,000 Satoshis, 40,000 Satoshis, and right here, 1 million Satoshis. So thanks so much to your donations. We're now 12.66% towards our goal. That's $126 raised towards $1,000 with the goal of covering the flights to and from Germany, maybe a couple of the other flights, as I will be attempting to attend 3 Bitcoin conferences in Europe to bring back free interviews for you. Hackers steal $40 million worth of Bitcoin from one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. So that's obviously how this story looks to the mainstream media. They're excited that Binance will cover the incident in full, just showing again how much money they must have, how much profit, et cetera, et cetera. A very, very big company. But once again, they just got hacked. So maybe they should have spent some of that money that was in insurance in actually hiring people to keep you from being hacked. Although it sounds like a very good hack, a very multi-layered, spread out hack, lots of different attack variables. But still, it's your job to keep that money safe. It also sounds like their hot wallet was incredibly big. They say this was only their hot wallet that was hacked with $40 million worth of Bitcoin. They must have an incredible amount in cold storage. At least I hope it's in cold storage. It might just be under some guy's cat. Billionaire Charlie Munger compares Bitcoin investors to Judas Iscariot. I couldn't find the exact reference to Judas in this article. I assume he says that they're betraying the traditional financial system because we owe that thing all of our fealty and loyalty. I'm not sure about that. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But there was a great quote in here from Munger. He said, I think that people who are professional traders that go into trading cryptocurrencies, it's just disgusting. It's like somebody else is trading turds and you decide, I can't be left out. But don't they sell fertilizer? Don't they sell fertilizer, which is essentially trading turds? What's wrong with selling fertilizer? I don't know. Bitcoin price regains $6,000 trajectory as markets shake off Binance hack. Used to be something like this market hack would cause a serious downtrend in Bitcoin and a chorus of people questioning whether Bitcoin was valuable and whether the exchanges are any good and all that kind of thing. But seems like we're fine going back up, perhaps. Perhaps the reason we're going up is Facebook has lit a fire under Bitcoin and crypto. That's right. Facebook's plans to launch a rival to Bitcoin, which could only backfire in their face, spreading the word about Bitcoin. Oh, you mean Facebook coin is limited? It can only be spent on Facebook and our partner websites. But Bitcoin is like cash and can be spent anywhere. Should I hold Facebook coin or Bitcoin? Bitcoin price retreats, but bull case intact above $5,700. Omkar Godboll from Coinbase, the man who doesn't own any cryptocurrency. Loser. They've moved the view to the top of the article, so I'm going to go ahead and just read it because that's what they want you to do. With prices holding above Tuesday's low of 5,687, Bitcoin remains on track for a break above $6,000. Acceptance below 5,687 would validate the bullish exhaustion signaled by a shooting star candle. Ooh. That formed Tuesday and could yield a deeper drop to the 30-day moving average, currently at 5,333. The case for a deeper pullback would further strengthen if the current 3-day candle ends below 5,510. Obviously, it looks like it's going to 1,500. Obviously, it's going to 1,000. Everyone knows that. It's a hyperwave. Duh. Everyone knows that. PayPal skips Bitcoin while clearly working on blockchain and cryptocurrency. Once again, Facebook, PayPal, everyone else will have no choice but to follow the same boring old path to cryptocurrency. First, you find it, you think it's really neat. Then you think, hey, we could just print our own. Then you spend years trying to convince people that your own cryptocurrency has value and that it's better than Bitcoin and that it's different than Bitcoin and that it's superior and all these things. Then eventually you give up, and Facebook and PayPal both start accepting Bitcoin, just like they're serving up web pages on the HTTP on the old TCP/IP bandwagon right here. Right now, we're in that period where everyone says, hey, I can copy that. I can do better. Later, we'll be in that period where everyone says, hey, I tried to copy that and I couldn't do better. It's not better. PayPal Cash, Facebook Cash is not better than Bitcoin. Bitmain discloses 88% reduction in its own Bitcoin mining power. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. At one point, Bitmain, one of the largest miners in the space, now an 88% reduction. Crippling news for Bitmain, who's also lost their IPO, rejected by the Hong Kong stock market. Fidelity crypto trading creates best news scenario for surging Bitcoin price. People have all been talking that Fidelity is going to launch crypto trading to their entire platform very soon. This would be big news for Bitcoin, potential for a lot more investor money to enter the market, and more good news, continuing the path of which exchanges accept Bitcoin yet? Why doesn't your exchange accept Bitcoin? We're looking at you, E-Trade. We're looking at you. Institutional Bitcoin trading from Fidelity could boost Bitcoin by $2,000 easily. That sounds nice. Prince Charles on Bitcoin. It's a very interesting development. Not exactly a sign of confidence, but not exactly a direct insult. Interesting stuff from Prince Charles, the man who may never be king. May never be king, but good luck to him. And finally, one more quote from Warren Buffett. Bitcoin is like a seashell or something. He doesn't know how to use the seashells. Thanks again to everybody for donating. We had 5 donations. This allows us to do things like the proof of work interviews here on the World Crypto Network. Check it out. We have 14 interviews. There's one more coming online today. I think it's scheduled. It probably went off already. We're up to 19 videos in the can. I'm going to go to Europe again to shoot more interviews for this series. So thanks so much for your support. Now it's the call-in time of Bitcoin Talk. I'm going to put my headphones on. Hopefully people haven't been calling or talking because I've had my headphones off. I see Jimbo's joining us in the chat. Jimbo, do you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
How's it going, Jimbo?
It's going great. I missed out on a bunch of shows because usually I'm at work, but I happen to be home today, and so I'm happy to join.
All right, well, welcome aboard. First, let's just talk about Binance. What do you think about the Binance hack, and what do you think about Binance's response to it?
Yeah, so the hack is not surprising. Hacks are pretty common. I thought the response that, hey, we might roll back the chain was a little out there. Glad to see they decided to call it off with all their power and wisdom to do so. But it does raise an interesting question, which is, at what point will there be a hack large enough that that somebody well connected enough could convince a large enough number of miners to engage in that kind of a rollback. And I don't know, it's an interesting thought experiment. Like, what would have to be true to make that happen?
I agree. Well, we have to start out. Okay, 7,000 bitcoins were taken out of 21 million. You know, that's not that many. What if it was 1,000,000 bitcoins? What if it was 10 million bitcoins? How big does it have to be before we start working on this? And what I also liked was to see the game theory roll out, because at first it sounded like he wasn't actually going to roll back the chain. He was going to create some kind of strange transaction that would force this money to go to the mining reward. So the miners would get a giant reward and the hackers would get nothing. This reminded me a lot, of course, of the Ethereum issue where they had the DAO and the DAO was hacked and they decided to roll back to take the money away from the DAO hacker. Both of these seem incredibly extreme. Like you're going to take the whole monetary system and adjust it because one company lost money. But you can see from their perspective why they need to do it or they need to float it. But you can see from our perspective, and I think most everyone spoke out on this, why we don't want it, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up game theory there. And one thing I saw on Twitter was somebody said, well, but then supposing that they were willing to pay the miners, so could the hackers. The hackers say, you know what, I'll pay you something to not roll back the chain. So that's another layer to add to that complexity.
Absolutely. And when your attacker now suddenly has 7,000 Bitcoin to work with, he has a serious option to pay those people. Whereas previously, maybe someone like you or myself doesn't have any money to pay the miners. We could ask them really nicely and we could say how much it would help us out and all those kind of things. But when it comes down to the money, they might move. Now, what does this say about the Bitcoin Cash or the Bitcoin SV approach? What if there were only 9 miners in the world and they were in 3 data centers and CZ knew 2 of the heads of the data centers? Do you think he would have been able to roll back Bitcoin in that scenario?
It would definitely be easier if you had more access to the miners. The nice thing about regular consensus Bitcoin in that regard, as you point out, obviously, is that there's lots of miners. But the hacker who would want to see that they get to keep the money, they have a very easy way to incentivize miners to keep the chain the way it is. All they have to do is send some transactions with very, very large fees. And then whoever mines that block is going to have a real incentive not to roll it back.
And additionally, this rollback, if we do the traditional rollback, it would also cost everyone who sent Bitcoin in, say, the last 24 hours. All of those transactions would be rolled back as well. If you paid a company, if someone paid you, all these kind of things, it gets really complicated.
Well, sure, yeah. So if that was a credible threat, the what I think would be the game theoretic logical thing to do, like suppose Binance represented a real credible threat that they could roll back the chain. What you'd want to do then is send your cold storage Bitcoin to Binance and dump it all for something else, so that when they roll back, if they were able to do so, you would get your coins back from them and whatever you dumped it for.
Yes, you would. It's awful. The whole rollback idea it's just a terrible one. Certainly Ethereum did it. We've all seen it happen now. There's a good question in the chat. Gabriel asks, is a rollback possible without a chain split? I think in the traditional kind of rollback that we're talking about, the Ethereum rollback, that did result in a chain split. There was Ethereum Classic, the original chain, where the hacker gets to keep his coins, and Ethereum New, the new Ethereum, where the hacker does not get his coins. In the traditional rollback, I would say that Binance would go for one of those where Binance gets the coins under one scenario, the hacker gets the coins under the other. But again, this isn't just a typical rollback. This was some kind of fancy transaction rollback that maybe would have just affected the Binance coins. And instead of distributing them to the hacker, it would have distributed them to the miners. So it's still kind of a rollback, but it's a different kind of version of a rollback, and it's what the idea that they were floating. And obviously, again, we're understanding their position. $40 million is out there on the street. If there was any way to get this back without completely destroying faith in Bitcoin, I'd probably be all for it, right? I mean, we got to, hackers, cats and mouse, we got to play this game. But if you roll it back and you ruin all of Bitcoin, who cares about your stupid little company, right?
Yeah. So I'd like to weigh in on the difference between this and the Ethereum Classic thing that happened. So in the and I'm not 100% like expert on that because I kind of stopped paying attention as soon as the fork happened. But in order to make that fork work, what we now call Ethereum had to put in some kind of a rule that undid or made go away the bug that originally got hacked. In the case that we're talking about right now today, there's no bug per se. So there wouldn't be a hard fork as far as the network is concerned. Like there wouldn't be a different set of consensus rules. Everybody would still be running the same consensus rules. We would just be going back in time to change the way the transactions work. And then you mentioned that it might just affect only that one transaction or something like that. But in that scenario where we were trying to roll back the chain and then play it forward, we would be trusting basically all of the miners to put back all of the transactions in the interim that were there before. So if anybody new comes along and says, no, I really want to do something totally unrelated to the hack, I have a really important transaction to put through, and then they say, well, I'm going to put a very large fee on it. Well, that's going to have to bump off something else that was previously confirmed. And now we're trusting that miners won't take, the advantage of their, they won't follow the economically incented thing to do, which is to mine the fees, the transactions with the greatest fees. So there's an element of trust there beyond just the fact that they're trying to roll back that one transaction. You have to trust that they would actually play back history the way it was, and I don't see any way that we could trust that.
That's an excellent point. They would have to play back the blocks. The blocks would have to be in their original structure, like you're saying. If we add or subtract any transaction, we're changing history. We're changing the past. And I agree with you. The economic incentives, if someone really needed to send $1 million and they didn't care and they were going to put $100,000 on the fees, that transaction is going to go through before all of these replay old transactions, and it's going to change history. And
Right.
Coins are going to be in a different place than they used to be in. We're not going to be able to recreate the same set that we had previously. So yeah, it's a big mess.
Well,
Sure.
yeah, and of course, there are certainly lots of scenarios where people would want to do that. So, for example, suppose somebody had just sent a very large payment with Bitcoin during this period that we're now talking about rolling back, and they just used a regular sized fee. Well, now they can get that money back by issuing another transaction that has a higher fee, but then sends that same money back to themselves. So other people can use the fact that they happen to have made large transactions as an opportunity to supplant those transactions with higher fee ones that would replace them.
And this breaks all of the immutability that we talk about with Bitcoin when we say that you can send it one way. So if I was in Indonesia and I made some graphic art for you, and you sent me the Bitcoin and I sent you the graphic art, our transaction is done. But if you can now roll back the Bitcoin, I have no way of rolling back the graphic art. And that's just a small example. It could be a car. It could be 1 million pounds of illegal drugs. Something where you would want to cancel it. You would want to keep the drugs and the money. Of course, the dude's going to come after you. The same thing for the car. They're going to come after you. But there's a million different transactions where you don't even know the person. You're not even in front of the person. And those would all be wrecked by this, as well as the faith in Bitcoin going forward that this is going to be a one-way transaction network, and that there's no way to get around this, whether you're somebody small like me or you, or somebody huge like CZ from Binance. If a mistake like this happens on Bitcoin and somebody takes your 7,000 Bitcoin, which would be a great thing to happen to me if I had 7,000 Bitcoin. But no, you got to live with it. And I think part of this, we really have to unpack the media situation again. Respect to CZ for going on that AMA. Disrespect to CZ's PR people for not stopping him from going on that AMA. Similarly, if they had this meeting, they must have some kind of meeting where they're like, what are our options? What can we do? Can we roll it back? A similar shout to the PR people for not standing up in that meeting and say, no, we can't roll it back. No one's going to accept this. You're going to destroy our public relations for something that's not going to work. Now, the engineers can sit there and they can say, we can do this. We can get the money back. And for them, it's just a technical problem. Like, technically, would this work? Would the money end up? And again, this sounds like this transaction-based rollback that they're working on wouldn't have even given Binance back the money. So I don't know why they would do that. Are they just like morality police? They're like, this hacker can't keep the money. Hacker did the work. Hacker broke your system. Hacker should get the money. I mean, like, why should we just give it to the miners instead? But what do you think, Jimbo, about the PR situation? Is this just a matter of nobody spoke up, or the boss didn't think of this, or some kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that even floating the idea out there was a bad move. I find it interesting. So that there's the truth, and then there's the FUD, and the truth is they tried to redact that or pull it back and say no, we didn't mean that, or we were just talking about it. But the FUD spreads pretty fast. So I actually expected there to be more of a hit to price based on the FUD angle, because people are still talking about the FUD angle, and that's still spreading through the internet. And I expected a bigger price dump, because if people thought there was any kind of real threat of a rollback, like I said, the mathematically correct thing to do is to spend your Bitcoin immediately. And by spend, I mean like sell for fiat or buy something of real value with it. Because if there's a rollback, you would get those coins back. But and there would be likewise a disincentive to buy Bitcoin during the period where a rollback was even in question, because so based on the market effects of people not wanting to buy and wanting to sell, one would expect the price to go down. So I thought there was going to be a bigger price hit based on this piece of news, but there really hasn't been anything. So that either means that people haven't thought through those particular game theoretic outcomes, or people don't care, or people just don't believe that it was likely to happen in the first place. So any of those, I don't know. Like I said, I expected to see a bigger dip, and it didn't happen.
Well, also remember, we're on the full 24-hour clock here. So everyone in China is waking up, everyone in other countries is waking up, going to sleep, all that. We kind of have to wait until everyone's had maybe a day or something to interpret this news and to figure out where they want to move their positions, things like that. I agree. It was a mistake to float it. It was a mistake to bring it up. This whole Binance thing from the beginning has always been very strange to me. I don't pay that much attention to ICOs, things like that. This started out, there was a little ICO called Binance. Then suddenly they took the money, they made a little exchange. Then the exchange got really big. Something happened with wherever they were at. They were going to have to pay taxes. So they moved to Malta. Now they're like 30% of the economy of Malta or something. It's pretty incredible that this all happened from an ICO. And I've heard lots of good things about this exchange. I've heard good things about CZ and about the rest of the crew over at Binance. But then this happens. And now I'm back to my old, oh, it was an ICO, it was a scam. Maybe he took the coins himself, that kind of thing, an inside job. Maybe even all this rollback thing is just designed to hide the fact that maybe he took the coins, or maybe someone else who worked there took the coins. I don't know. But Jimbo, what do you think about Binance? Have you tried it? Are you into it?
Yeah. So my strategy with exchanges is I kind of try a lot of them that I can. I haven't really done a lot of movement on Binance, and of course, as is good practice, I don't keep coins on any exchange. They're just there to swap in and out between. So I don't have any, I'm sorry, unfortunately, strong opinions on Binance as an exchange per se.
Well, it did look like they were, again, they're one of these revolutionary business models that Coinbase is always following and copying. For a while there, I think Binance was the place to get the new ICO or the new altcoin or whatever it was. They were very fast, much like Cryptsy back in the day, of adding a new coin, new coins coming out, new coins coming out. And they'd have a big rush of traffic, and everyone would buy the new coin, and everyone who owned bags full of the new coin would dump it on all the new suckers and all that kind of thing. And it was going really well, I think, from the outside, at least looking at it. And now, of course, Coinbase has run off to copy that model, and they want to be the place with the new coin, and they want to offer 5,000 crypto assets, and no one can tell the difference between any of them. But that was one thing they did, certainly, is that new coin idea, right?
Yeah, it totally makes sense for exchanges to go that route, because they make money when you trade. They take a little piece when you go in and out of one coin or another, and so unfortunately, their incentives and exchanges' incentives is to keep you trading, and the way to do that is to basically add more different games to the casino, and that's what these new coins represent. So it's not surprising to me that that Binance offered a whole bunch of coins, or that Coinbase is going in that direction. It's annoying to us Bitcoiners. It's funny. I have a friend who I've been talking to about Bitcoin for a long time, and he's finally starting to do some research. And he asked me like, well, what about these other coins, you know, that you see? And I have to explain to him like, look, it's in all of the exchanges incentives to get you hooked on all these different things so that you trade them so they make the fees. They're like bookies at the track, you know, that's how they make their money.
I definitely think so. It's a good analogy. And remember with Cryptsy, they kept adding so many coins. In many ways, this is allegedly what led to their downfall. The official story from Cryptsy is that they added a coin called Lucky 7 coin, and that the Lucky 7 coin had a Trojan horse in its wallet that allowed presumably whoever wrote the wallet to steal a bunch of funds from Cryptsy. So once again, here we have Binance adding every coin under the sun. Maybe they're more focused as an engineering problem on adding more coins rather than being more focused on solving whatever the heck the hack was. If you look at the Coinbase, it's the same kind of thing. Coinbase has never been largely publicly hacked. A lot of individuals have lost their coins, and Coinbase has done nothing, even when they might have been at fault. But there hasn't been a large, major breach. However, if they keep losing their focus, much like Binance here, splitting it up, working on adding the new coins, working on some kind of other new nonsense, instead of focusing on the nuts and bolts, on the security, maybe Coinbase will be hacked next. Maybe they've already been hacked. Remember, the great thing about this Binance story, at least the part that I read, they said that the hackers waited. The hackers were patient, and the hackers waited and learned and watched how their systems worked, and they waited till the hot wallet was very full to strike. So once again, the great or the terrible thing about hackers is that they can be inside your system just watching, not breaking anything, just waiting for you, Coinbase, to put that $10 million or that $100 million into the hot wallet, and then suddenly everything goes wrong.
Yeah, it's a shame that these hacks happen, but they're also they're sort of inevitable, as you point out. A whole lot of coins get concentrated into a small space, and hackers can certainly be patient. You know, once you're in there, you just got to wait. Unless you're worried about somebody else also hacking, in which case then you might have to get out before they do. You know.
And it is up to the exchanges. The real way to protect this is to not be an exchange that holds currency, and maybe to have some kind of system at the end of the day. You put, I guess could be easily hacked as well, but you could put your wallet addresses in. It could dump your coins to your cold storage at night. It could dump them to your personal computer. I guess that takes a lot of complexity in setting up, especially since many of these new altcoins don't even bother to make a wallet, or don't even bother to make a wallet that works. There was one of them, I forget which one. I think it was Cosmos, and they raised something like $5 million, and it's been 3 years, and their wallet is still in beta. And it's just like these people are not working on their projects. And especially if you're just a normal guy wants to buy some on an exchange, hold it on his home computer, hold it in cold storage, or maybe you have like an offline laptop, something really secure that you use. Transfer your coins out of the exchange. Do it every night. See, it's way too hard. No one can do it. The traders can't do it. No one has the discipline. It's like backing up your computer or backing up your photos. If it doesn't happen automatically, the average user is going to forget. They're not going to do it right. But yeah, until people do that, until people stop storing their funds on centralized exchanges, we're going to keep having these hacks. The complexity is right there. The problem's right there. They're moving your money around. They control your private keys. I don't know how to fix it other than keeping the money off the exchanges.
Yeah, definitely keep your own keys, and the incentives are a real struggle too, because as you point out, getting your coins in and out of the exchange, if your goal is to trade, that's going to be real onerous. But yeah, you gotta keep your own keys, or otherwise you're at real risk all the time. The incentives just don't work out from the exchange perspective, right? Because they want to see you trading, because every time you trade, they take a cut. If you have your own keys on your own system, that's going to make it harder for you to trade, and they don't get a cut of that. I was really excited to hear about Lightning Network back in the day when I was first hearing about it. And one of the things I liked about it was it seemed like it was going to be possible to do atomic swaps between coins. If you could find a partner who is willing to do it over Lightning. That I haven't really seen that materialize, but that may just be a client software problem. Like maybe we just need to find the right coordinating software that can say, okay, well, you have Bitcoin and Lightning channels, and somebody else has Litecoin and Lightning Litecoin channels, and then we can somehow do an atomic swap between them by sharing secrets. I think that would be really a cool way to go, and maybe we can see an end to these exchanges in the sense that they have to hold any funds at all, and maybe they can just become coordination services wherein two people find each other. But how do you make that? How do you make that incentive compatible? Like you're not going to get VC funding for we're not going to actually touch any of the money. We're just going to help people find each other. But how do you make money is kind of
I
the
think
question.
that I totally agree. I think that's part of the problem in Bitcoin, that we have this incredible system, but if you really build something on it, you should build it in a way where you don't make money. That's a problem with a lot of the projects that I've supported, things like ProTip or especially Tallycoin these days. Tallycoin is a fundraising platform that's maybe the shape that these exchanges should have. Tallycoin doesn't hold any of your funds. All they hold is your address, the amount of money you want to raise, and then they check the Bitcoin network to see if your address has raised that amount of money. So if you had an exchange like this where you could see how much you have and you could offer it up for atomic swaps, like you're saying, you could trade it for other Bitcoin at the exact right price when the clock strikes 12, whatever it is. Or you could trade it for Litecoin or any other coin that has the Lightning network, that we could do that atomic swap, which again, atomic swap, we're really just saying it's worth $10 on one side, it's worth $10 on the other side. It matches up perfectly. And now we trade $10 worth of Bitcoin for $10 worth of Litecoin. And it goes straight to your address. Whereas if you use an exchange, it's all a big middleman. And like I heard with Cripsy, you thought you were trading things, you thought you were buying and selling. Really, you were just working against a database. They had all the coins in cold storage or whatever. You weren't actually moving the coins around. You weren't actually trading them. So as long as that keeps happening, we're going to keep having these easily hackable black boxes where we keep all of the coins in one place, which, like you said, makes it a very attractive target for hackers. Additionally, if they had a system like we're talking about where you were forced to store your own coins at home, you didn't have to store them on Coinbase, it breaks the customer lock-in. If you're on Coinbase or you're on GDAX and you're trading on there, then your coins are on there, your charts are on there, your orders are on there, everything's on there. So it becomes very difficult if you suddenly have your coins at home. You could easily switch. You could start trading on Binance tomorrow instead of Coinbase. You could start trading on, I don't know, blockchain.info, whatever else there is, all the other ones, Bittrex. So I can see why they wouldn't want to do that. And I completely agree. I think the exchanges are gambling casinos, and people go there to gamble and to buy their new chips. If you just buy the old chips and the Bitcoin and store them in your own wallet, you're not really playing the casino's game. So you're not as useful a customer for them, but maybe you have less chance of losing all your money.
Yep. 100% agree. I did look at, I know Max is really into Bisq. I did look into that a little bit. I haven't tried it yet. But that's another way to go. Try to act as a, so Bisq takes the opinion, and again, I haven't used it, but as I understand it, Bisq takes the stance that they will help people find each other so that they can trade directly, and then they will act as a sort of adjudicator for disputes. So when you go to send Bitcoin, it gets locked up into an address that can be overseen if there's any sort of a dispute. But other than that, they kind of stay out of it, and they take a little cut for their service of providing that adjudication. So I think Bisq is an example of an organization that's trying to move away from the centralized system, but it's going to take a while. And the thing about decentralization is not efficient, right? People, unfortunately, frequently, especially in the engineering disciplines, use the word efficient as a synonym for good. Well, it would be more efficient if we did this. And what they mean to say is it would be better. But efficiency is not the only thing that matters. And there are lots of cases in life where we trade efficiency for some other good. It would be more efficient to get into your house if there wasn't a lock on it, but you lock your door, because you're willing to trade the efficiency for some other good, namely security. So, yes, these centralized third-party exchanges are efficient because they're centralized. And decentralization is not as efficient because it's decentralized, but you're trading it for some other sort of a good. And the only way you can get that is by, seizing your personal sovereignty and your control over your keys.
Absolutely. I think this efficiency allows a place like Coinbase or Binance to have a lot of coins and a large pool of liquidity, so that when I put my trades up, they go through, there's someone there on the other side. And this makes trading easy. For something like BISC, where they're trying to do matching and they don't have as many users and they don't have as many coins and all these kind of things, I think it's much harder to get what you want out of an exchange, which is to go in, buy something, and to leave. On these decentralized exchanges, you might be going in, putting up your order, waiting a few days to find a partner, and then leaving with your money, perhaps at a completely different evaluation. So it really makes trading kind of impossible. I think that these decentralized exchanges will continue to exist, but at the same time, all the high frequency trading, all the bot trading, all the complicated, all the liquidity is going to be in one of these centralized exchanges, and they're just going to keep getting hacked over and over again. So it is interesting. We have the right solutions, we have the right tools, but you're right. We can't quite solve them. The efficiencies aren't there. Another point on the efficiency, I saw this great thing on Swift on Security, Taylor Swift's Twitter account. You guys might not know, but Taylor Swift's an incredible internet security professional. That's why she's never been hacked. That's why there's no Taylor Swift nude pictures on the internet. But what Taylor Swift at Swift on Security shared is that in many cases, an Excel database or an Excel spreadsheet is better than a database. The number one reason he listed is that they didn't have to deal with your elitist ass. And they didn't have to deal with a database administrator. They didn't have to get a professional in there. They have a relatively simple Excel spreadsheet that they can update and maintain for maybe 5 to 20 years on their own. As nice as that database would be, PHP, MySQL, whatever you're going to use, it's much more difficult to have that database and to maintain it. Whereas that Excel spreadsheet, even if it got messed up, could probably be fixed in an hour or so by an amateur. So it really is interesting. Certainly, from a computer science perspective, I'm all about the databases. I think we should do that. But if you think about it from a normal user perspective or a business perspective, it might be just as efficient for them to use an Excel spreadsheet, something that they can control, rather than putting all their trust in this strange and perhaps overcomplicated database. I saw a little bit of a blockchain metaphor in there as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of spreadsheets as a technology, right? It's like a two-dimensional functional reactive programming environment, but it looks really friendly. It's just like a table that you put things in and set up your formulas. So I like spreadsheets a lot. Whenever you're talking about doing data storage and scale, you mentioned at what scale are you going to support? It's important to remember, like, what are you trying to scale to? Right. So your point about the spreadsheet, if you need to store thousands of records and they need to have maybe dozens of fields per record, that would be like columns and rows, that'll fit inside of a spreadsheet just fine. When you break through thousands into tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of records, now that storage medium might not work for you. When you start to worry about losing your data, now the question is, how are you going to back it up? And would it make more sense to have replicated data storage? And so it's just questions on questions on questions. The blockchain piece has kind of one focus, and that is to reduce the centralization, the fact that a small number of people could make a decision about changing the past. And anything else that's blockchain, I like your analogy that you use sometimes, where you say you could just change blockchain to database and it still makes sense in many cases. So if that's the case, then just use a database. You only need to go to a blockchain when you really do have a need for truly decentralized, permissionless, unalterable history, and that's what Bitcoin affords.
Well, it's all about trust. They keep imposing blockchains on things where I don't think they need them, because there's no necessity. Like they had an example recently. They said they put all of Amsterdam's garbage trucks on a blockchain, and now whenever the garbage trucks dump garbage, it's recorded on the blockchain. So now the garbage truck drivers cannot edit the database. I don't think we had a problem with garbage truck drivers editing the database. I think the problem is that they had an old paper system with paper forms. And then instead of upgrading to a database, which would be perfectly satisfactory for most of their usage, they're updating to a blockchain. But are we going to put this interoperable trash records on a public system so we can all verify that our trash was properly thrown out? All this kind of thing. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It seems like we're in a mania. I thought we were in a mania before in 2014 with the blockchain mania. But now we're really in a mania. Governments are getting in, massive companies, IT departments, all these kind of things. And it's hard to say this while we're in the middle of a mania because I sound like an idiot, but it feels a little like the IT departments could have gotten $10 million to upgrade to databases, and they should. And it's a good idea, and they should upgrade to databases, or they could get $100 million to update to blockchains. And maybe in a few years from now, they can do some research and they can say, hey, we took that 100 million off you, but we spent 20 of it and we figured out that we don't really need a blockchain. And we're going to use the other 80 to write a database. So I don't know if we're going to go through that. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe blockchains are awesome. There are certain scenarios where you can't trust the other people. Like if you were an oil company working with a bunch of other oil companies and you didn't trust them, then maybe you'd need a blockchain. But once again, who's going to mine this blockchain? Who's going to keep it from being edited? It can't just be one of the oil companies. I can't just blindly trust an oil company not to edit a blockchain if it benefits them. So it's some interesting stuff out there with the blockchains.
Yeah, yeah. I had a long argument. With a colleague of mine about blockchain, and his contention at the time was something like, well, governments could do their own blockchain. Like there could be like a Fed coin that's a blockchain. And I tried to explain like that makes no sense because there's no way they would want to give up control. I mean, it's a centralizing entity. Like sovereign currencies maintain control of their currency, that they don't want to decentralize that control. Why would they possibly use a blockchain? And over the course of probably an hour, I finally realized that what I mean by blockchain is not what he meant. And what he meant was a database that uses cryptographic keys to sign transactions. And if that's all you mean, it's like there's a signing procedure that validates that some transaction has at least been signed by the holders of the keys. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, exactly like you were just saying about the different companies that might not trust each other. Two companies could each independently sign a transaction, but then there's no reason that transaction can't be stored in something much simpler, more akin to, say, a spreadsheet, than a proof of work based blockchain. So I think the word blockchain, unfortunately, has become kind of like cloud, or way back in the day, like aspect oriented programming. It's just a term now. And so people say blockchain, and what they really mean is database, which happens to have some cryptographic special sauce, whether that's signing transactions or that it would be inconvenient to rewrite large amounts of history. Not that it can't be done, but just that it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, I think that's what they're really going for. What they really want is to just store some connected hashes in a database at the end of the database. So at the end, you just put a big hash of what was in there at the end, and you connect that hash to the previous hash to the next hash, and that's it. It's now a tamper-resistant database. I don't think they really need a tamper-proof database, nor are they willing to pay the having decentralized miners, having a coin that pays those miners, and having the whole decentralization. Seems like someone's making intentional noise outside of my room. Can you guys hear that hair fan or something? It's a hair dryer.
I don't.
All right, cool. Well, we'll try to keep going, but it's just so funny. Earlier we had airplanes flying over the house, and it sounded like maybe a dozen of them, and maybe they were going in circles. And now I've got some kind of hair dryer, and it's like they're pointing it right at the door. Like, and it's already a really hot room in here. So just a shout out, everyone should follow at Swift on Security, mainly joking about Taylor Swift, the singer, but this is a really cool Twitter account. Check out the proof of work interviews. Let's see. Oh, we didn't get any donations. Maybe next time. But Jimbo, I think we're going to head towards the end of the show. I only really wanted to do a short show, kind of talk about the Binance thing. We did about an hour. It doesn't look like anyone's around to call in. We had some good questions in the chat. Thanks for the chat, for talking us up. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. Jimbo, anything you want to say in closing today?
Not your keys, not your coins. That's all I got to say.
That's it. Don't store your money on centralized exchanges. We say it all the time, but even we acknowledge it's harder to actually do than we say, especially if you're going to trade a dozen or maybe 2 dozen or maybe 100 different altcoins. You're going to have 100 different altcoin wallets. You're going to have to manage them all. But if you want to be bulletproof, if you want to be in a position where someone says, "Oh, Binance got hacked," and you say, "I don't care because I don't keep any of my money in there," this is the way to do it, is to have your home system and to really set it up, have a bunch of wallets, maybe have a secure laptop, an offline computer that you just store them to. And then when you have to, you send them out and you connect it. Something like that is a better solution. But thanks so much to everybody for joining us. Be sure to check out the interview that just went live right here on the World Crypto Network. You can subscribe down below. We're having proof of work interviews every Wednesday. I've got about 7 of them scheduled. I need to go and edit some more now and upload them and get them ready. And once again, thanks for supporting our trip to Germany. Our goal is to interview more people for the World Crypto Network, then to get back home, edit the interviews, and upload them for free. So if you like free interviews, if you like free shows, if you like the World Crypto Network and you want to support what we're doing here, donate Bitcoin to the QR code on your screen right now. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye.